morning, good morning. Welcome. It's my delight and privilege. I get to wrap up this series that we've been doing. My name is Joel. If we haven't yet met, it's nice to meet you and thanks for being here. But I get the privilege of wrapping up this series, and Christopher and Sam did a great job. And so they've done so well, I can't do wrong, right? So it's great. But I get the blessing and the benefit of being able to talk about something that applies to all of us. All of us have this thing that I'm going to talk about today. We all have this, and we all have to wrestle with it. We all have it's something that we all deal with. And the thing I'm talking about today is hope. Hope. You know, and we talk about getting our, we have hope in something. We have hope for the future. We live in hope. You know, we have these expressions. We talk about, being full of hope. And hope springs eternal and all these kind of things. And then on the other hand, we also have this thing where we say to people, don't get your hopes up, don't count your chickens before they hatch, hedge your bets, I wouldn't, don't put all your money on one horse, or however else you want to explain it. Like, we have this other side where we say, like, yes, go for it, get your hopes up. And then we also say, no, don't get your hopes up. So and that's the tension we wrestle with. How do we live in hope when we also feel like we shouldn't get our hopes up? And that's a tension. And whether you're a follower of Jesus, or whether you're young or old, male or female, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are in life, every single human being wrestles with hope. This is a tension that we all experience as humanity. And if you're not yet a follower of Jesus, what I'm going to talk about today is something where it gives an explanation about how Christians and why followers of Jesus can have hope. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, this will be a good time for you to be able to lean in and hear a bit more and understand a bit more. And maybe it's something that would help you on your own journey. But for those of us who are already followers of Jesus, it's an honest conversation about the tension of hope, because it's actually tough and it's hard sometimes to have hope. Now, here's a really simple definition of hope. And it's basically having someone or something that you want them to bring about good in the future. That's a really sort of simple definition. Is this in the way? I've just realized, I was just saying that just before we started, I just said, I think I blocked the TV. But if it is, just somebody tell me. So we always put hope. Hope always relates to putting it in someone or something. And that someone or something, we want that someone or something to bring about good in the future. And think about, here's just some places, some examples, some idea. We can place it in a job, your career. We put it in relationships, don't we? This is not an exclusive list, by the way. We put it in, you put hope in the economy, politics, or not. I was reading on the BBC. I think it was yesterday or this morning, when they're talking about the peace deal going on in Gaza at the moment, and maybe some of the people didn't do exactly what they were supposed to do, and now the peace treaty might be off again or might be on again. How do you live in that in between? We're hoping for the politicians and other people to actually sort out something that we can't sort out ourselves, but then it just keeps falling apart, or you want the economy to work out, and maybe it's not fully working out. We put, I just had to look at my list because I forgot, because I got sidetracked. So we got skills. We put our hope on our skills and our talents, maybe our education, looks, your social media, the things that we want to bring about good for us in the future. Maybe even at times you can do it, religion. Religion in the broadest sense being, I must do something in a certain way to earn favor. So general religion, not just, it could be it's world religions, So we place our hope, our trust in something in the future. And here's why we do it. It's understandable from a human point of view, psychologically. The reason we put hope in other people is because something happens when we're born. We are utterly, 100% entirely dependent on somebody else. The way the human species works, we're not one of those animals that pops out and is able to do something right away. We pop out and we can do jack all. We're like so helpless. We can't dress ourselves, feed ourselves, clothe ourselves. We can't do anything. We can't even move, right? We just have to sit there and cry and then like wet ourselves and then eat and like sleep, hopefully. Right? Like that's all we do. We're actually such a helpless species from a biological point of view. Right? It's truth. But what that does is it deep in who we are, deep in our souls, if you like, or deep in our psyche, our upbringing, our development, we know that something else has to provide for us. We just know that from the beginning. And we put our hopes in something. But here's what happens. As you grow up, you begin to get told and you learn that if you work hard, if you study hard, if you save your money the right way, if you invest the right way, if you eat the right things and don't eat the bad things and hang out with good people and don't hang out with dodgy people. And we tell you these kind of things that you should do. And then when we try to do them and we think those things will make our future better. And if only we work hard enough or strive enough, our future will work out. And we learn it at an early age because in education, you look at the other kids and some of the other kids who are more athletic than you seem to get more attention, and some of the people who look better than you somehow seem to get more attention or are more popular. And there's these things that people do, and all of a sudden it becomes, that's the sort of stuff that we reach for and attain. We try to be like them, right? This is what we do. And it's just how we're wired. But as we grow up, we also, at an early age, begin to understand things like that person in school. I was really hoping that they'd be my friend, and I was imagining we could do birthday parties or sleepovers together. And then you find out that they're not really a very nice friend. They've been talking about you, or they don't invite you to the parties, or, they were just making fun of you. And you learn really early on that sometimes things don't work out the way that you wanted. And maybe some of us are old enough to have had more than one relationship in our lives, and some of those relationships didn't work out. Maybe it was an early girlfriend, an early boyfriend, and you're hoping that this person is gonna be wonderful, and actually they ended up being a dirt bag or something. I don't know. Like they let you down. They broke your heart. They didn't do what you hoped for and wanted. And maybe even some of us took a vow and stood up in front of people and we said, "Until death do us part." Except it wasn't until death do us part for the other party. It was just basically until they found somebody else that they thought was a bit more fun or a bit more attractive or a bit more whatever. And our hearts begin to have this thing happen where we don't really want to put hope in situations or in people. Maybe it's in the workplace. You really worked hard for a certain job or a promotion, and it seemed like they were giving it to you. I mean, the way that your supervisor, or your boss, or line manager, the way she was talking to you, you thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna progress in this company, and then you go for the interview or you go for the bit, and they give it to somebody else. You don't understand why you actually put so much effort in, or you put so much effort in your education, and then you don't get the grades you want, or something happens in your skills, your talents, and you're in this little circle, and everyone says you can go on the X Factor because you're amazing, and then you go on the X Factor and everybody laughs at you. And then you realize, maybe I wasn't as good as everybody thought, Like, we live with this, like, And then sometimes we get a diagnosis that we didn't plan for, we didn't want. And we thought, hey, I'm just doing everything right. And now I get this diagnosis. And it's either an illness that I don't want to deal with, or it's the news that my parents, or the news that my grandfather's got dementia or Alzheimer, or someone's got cancer, or someone's not able to have children. All of a sudden we get this news that affects the future. Because hope is when we have someone or something that we want them to help provide, make something good for our future. And it's hard to have hope in that place. And we do this not only for ourselves, but for those that we love. Because maybe you have a child or a sibling or a coworker or just a friend. And your heart aches for them because of the stuff that they're going through. Hope is this incredible thing that we all wrestle with, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not. Hope is something that we all wrestle with. So how do we actually have hope? Especially when things feel hopeless. That's the real question, isn't it? Isn't that the tension? So aren't you glad you came to church today? It's like, hey, this is a really encouraging place to be. After David's welcome about you're not going to be a millionaire and your health isn't going to just automatically work out. Here I am slamming you to the ground and being like, yeah, you got hopes? Yeah, sucker. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, welcome. Well, we're so glad you're here. Anyway, yeah. But yeah. But the one thing that I love about Christianity, and you might not have had this experience in your own upbringing or your own understanding it, Christianity is the most honest belief system in the world. It's the most honest belief system in the world. It knows that things are messed up and it has a real answer to how things are messed up. We don't candy coat things, we don't sugarcoat things. We know the situation, if you like. And so, so let's just have some honest conversations. But this tension between having hope and not wanting to be disappointed, we live in a frustration. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to be in that tension. It's a frustration. And if you've ever wanted to throw in the towel, or if you've ever been like, that's it, I'm never going on a date again, or I'm never going to try this again, I'm never going to apply for another job again, or, I'm just going to, if you've ever reached that point in your life, you're like, I've had enough. I don't even want to try. That's it. I'm done. Then that frustration. That sort of tension. And at some point you realize that no matter how hard you work, no matter how careful you are, we live in a broken world where none of this stuff is actually secure. And now because you're in church, I'm the preacher and I'm going to say, but put your hope in Jesus, right? Which I am going to say. But you're also going to think, yeah, well, he had to say that, but maybe you're also thinking, yeah, isn't that just a trite answer to what is actually a heavy problem? Isn't that just like a little, that's just like somebody saying, you'll be all right. And you're thinking, I'm dying, right? I'm falling apart. My world is crashing. And you just want to tap me on the head or something, So I want to explain to you and take a moment to share why I would say, put your hope in Jesus. And why I believe Jesus is the answer, because it gives us honest answers to deep questions and it embraces the real story and the real mess. So here's one I made earlier. I thought I would save time. So here's how it goes. In the story, in the Bible, the Bible's a bunch of books that have been put together, 66 different books. And the first book of the Bible is called Genesis. It's an old word that actually means the beginning. It's not a pop band with, Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel, although that is a good band. Anyway, so Genesis is the first book in the Bible. And in the first book of the Bible, it's got this creation narrative. It's the story of how the world came to be. And it's the story of how God's heart was for humanity and how God's heart is for creation. And the interesting thing about it is he creates this paradise, this perfect place. And he sets as equals, he sets male and female into this perfect environment. And they're given everything. They're kind of given the whole run of the land. It's like, hey, this is yours, And God's like, I just want to spend time with you. And this paradise is here. And he then says, there's only one thing I ask you to do. Out of all, you can do anything, but the one thing I ask you not to do is to eat from this one tree. But what happens is, if you know the story, and this is really quick run through, is they decide to do the one thing they were asked not to do. And they eat of the tree. And then the way the story goes, from this point onward, some people call it the fall. Another way to think of it is the unraveling, the undoing, the unbreaking. It's the unraveling of God's perfect plan. It's the undoing of what he actually wanted it to be like for all of humanity, but not just for the people, it was for all of creation. Because what happened then, when they decided to do things their own way, the story goes that at this moment, something came into the world which was effectively like a poison. It was like this, infection, this measles, this contagious disease, this poison that affected everything. And it didn't just affect the people, it affected all of the earth, all of creation, all of it became broken. All of it became diseased, if you like. And it's like the best way for me to explain it to you is like a poison. And maybe you don't like the idea of churches talking about sin. That's okay. I've already told you life's rubbish. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to be a millionaire, right? So like, it's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. I can talk about sin now, right? So and another way to think about it is it's this gunge. It's this poison. And what happens is it gets on stuff, okay? It affects things. Yeah. So it's all right. It'll wash. So what happens is this poison just kind of gets into everything. And we try to avoid it, but we can't avoid it because you know this. You might not even be a follower of Jesus, but you know that there's something that happens in humanity where brother hurts brother, sister hurts sister. People take advantage of people, and humans could be so good, and yet they're still so rotten sometimes. And you're like, what's going on? But another way to understand it is everything now is diseased. It's decaying, is dying. Every living thing now dies. Everything you plant in your garden, every tree we see, everything dies. Creation itself is broken. And everything now lives with a poison that affects it, a poison that is decaying everything. And yes, you're going to have incredible moments. You're going to have happy birthdays and, great experiences. And you're going to have fun things in life and have fun holidays. But no matter how much we try to avoid it, eventually it will decay. Eventually we will all die, right? I mean, I know it's not very encouraging, sorry, but it will happen. And the reason these things can't ultimately satisfy us is because, you see, all of these things are also decaying. Ultimately decaying. That's why it can't ultimately provide. So they ultimately have some gunk on them. They have a mess. Because it's a poison, right? And it's messed up. It's messed up everything. Everything. Yeah? Of course you should study, and of course you should earn money, and of course you should try to do well in your job and do well in relationships. Of course you should try to do all those things. But these things are not ultimately going to give you hope for the future. These things will not ultimately provide everything that your heart and soul is actually aching for. They're not bad things in and of themselves. These are just neutral things. Yeah, there's nothing right or wrong with these things. These just are. And so you should pursue these things and earn as much money as you can. Have the best career you can. Go for it. But just understand that it's decaying. One day you're not going to be able to take it with you. And no matter how sharp your mind is now, we know people that we've loved, who we've seen in their older ages struggle with things like Alzheimer's, dementia. And no matter how loving and kind and great and wonderful they were, the body decays. It decays. And so we're going to look at some things about how we deal with some of these moments. And we're going to look at a letter from Paul. And Paul was an early church leader. He was a brilliant guy who hated Jesus and then fell in love with Jesus. So if you're on a journey of faith, he's a great person to look into. And he's writing this letter to a group in Rome. And we're going to look at Romans chapter 8. And if you read this at home, please do read it at home. It's a bit confusing. So I've tried to get some translations that are a bit understandable. If you think I'm confusing, Paul's even more confusing, okay? So he's not here to defend himself, sadly. But no, Romans 8, 20 to 39 is actually a little bit confusing at times. And I'm hoping today that I can try to help it make sense. And here's what he says, Romans 8, verse 20. He says this, all creation, yeah? All creation is subjected to frustration. We live in that tension. But with eager hope, it looks forward to the day. All of creation looks forward to the day when it will be set free from its decay, free from its bondage. Basically, it's saying it's enslaved to decay. All of creation. And Paul, just to quickly sort of jump around it a little bit, he talks about in verses chapter 8, 22 to 25, he talks about how there's a frustration within ourselves and we ache. And he uses the words like groaning. It says we groan, the world groans, creation groans, the spirit groans. He talks about all this groaning and all this noise and all this stuff like that. And then in verse 25, he says this, we hope for that which we do not yet have, and we wait for it patiently. And that's the frustration and the tension when we wait this in-between time. We have to wait patiently because we don't have it yet. It's this in-between space that we live in where everything is decaying. And then Paul encourages us, he then writes sort of in verses 26 onwards that God's Spirit is with you in the midst of this, and he's praying with you, and he's working with you. He's anguished with you, he's pleading with you, and he's praying for you that it will all work, which is pretty crazy. But how can Paul talk about these kind of things? And he begins to go on to explain a little bit that into this real problem stepped a real solution. And in a moment, Victor's going to help us illustrate this in just a moment. But in the real problem stepped a real solution. And here's what happened. God sent his own son, Jesus, to earth. God so loved, do you know the verse? God so loved that he gave his one and only son. God so loved the all creation, which is enslaved and in a curse. God so loved the all creation that he sent his one and only son into the earth. And here we have a picture of, look at that. Baby Victor. Hey. I couldn't find any pictures of Jesus. Man, I tell you what, like there's not cameras back then or something. So yeah. So basically, Jesus comes to earth, and here's the mystery, and here's the incredible thing. I know we've just finished Christmas, but here's the mystery. He came to earth as a baby, which if you remember, we are the dumbest species because we are helpless. We can do nothing. We are totally dependent on someone else. And here, the God of the universe plays by our rules. Somebody had to change that boy's diaper, and somebody had to feed him, and somebody had to burp him at night, and somebody had to take care of him and do everything for him, and somebody had to teach him, the creator of language, how to speak. He came to earth as a helpless baby and played by our rules. He himself joined all creation and became subjected to frustration. That's a crazy idea. If you're not a follower of Jesus, this is a crazy idea that God would do that. It's the only belief system that says this is how much God loves you, that he becomes subject, under, a slave to humanity. This is crazy. This is a crazy, crazy idea. He came in such a way, and he stepped into the decay. He didn't take any shortcuts. And I want to, Victor's going to come up if you come up for me now. And the thing is, he came to be like us. Man, I just want to say, you've got some great fashion sense, man. Where'd you get that top? It's looking good. No, so yeah, I hope I got the right size. You were a little bit more muscly than me. So Jesus came to earth and he took on humanity. He took on the look of humanity. And then here's the crazy thing. He wasn't immune to the toxic mess. You see, unfortunately, I had it on me. And most of us shriek at the mess. And yet Jesus came and he embraced the mess. This is a mystery. Why would God do that? And then, do you know what? He experienced heartache and loss. He saw friends who died. He was betrayed by people he thought were his close friends. In fact, here's what happened. They sort of stab him in the back, right? Judas, I didn't put anything on you, but I could. No, okay. Judas, your close friend, one of your closest friends stabs you in the back. And then the system, the economics, the politics, the system, the education, everything in the system of the day, it ground him down so much so, and he experienced it so fully that it did what it does to every single one of us. He decayed and he died. This is the mystery of the gospel. The poison destroys us. The poison kills us. It's unavoidable. And Jesus didn't avoid it. Right? This is just crazy. Crazy. We think we can beat the odds, but we can't. Just checking where I was in the slides. And here's what was another mystery. I said about religion earlier. The Christian religion, he loved us first, not because we performed for God. He embraced us first. He became like human first. Not because we did something in a certain way to get their attention or do enough sacrifices or pray to enough idols or give enough money or cut ourselves or whatever we felt we had to do to try to get the attention or the favor or get some God to look at us and make our crops grow or whatever sort of belief systems we have. No, it was initiated by God. God loved us first. We didn't have to perform. He came first, which is incredible. And he knew what it was like to come up against all of these sort of beliefs. And then something happened. The story doesn't end. Of course, he gets killed. He puts on a cross, and the system crushes him. It beats him. It kills him. And the body, which is decayed, right? Jesus died. He died. Except the story doesn't end there. The story is he dies, but then he comes back to life. So take that top off for me. So, you see, when Jesus came back to life, he proved once and for all that he was who he said he was, and that there's a way to not live as a slave to decay. See, he came, and it says he came with a new body. It says he came with a resurrected body. You see, this is why he can then speak to his followers and say, in spite of everything that goes on in the world, you can trust in me, you can have hope in me. You know that I am worth you believing in and relying in and trusting in. And I didn't just come as some weird prophet that showed up and just said a few stories. No, I came and I lived among you. I moved into your neighborhood. I played by your rules. I was hurt the same way you get hurt. I tasted sin the same way you did. I've experienced the poison the same way you did. That's why Jesus becomes trustworthy. Because he's gone through it with us. We have written in Hebrews, it says we have a high priest that we can rely on, that we can trust on. And then he finishes his work, and then he disappears back to heaven, and he sits down at the right hand of the Father. You see, he took all of this stuff, and here's what Paul says. Here's why he can say it. If God is for us, who can be against us? If that's the kind of God we have, if that's the kind of person in our corner, if that's the sort of person who's on our side, then who in the world can come against us? This is what Paul writes. This is how he begins to go on. Jesus is the only source for hope. And he links it back. He says then he says, Jesus died for us and was raised to life for us. He died for us, he was raised for us, and now he's sitting at the right hand of God pleading for us. Okay, he just said, who's for us? He died for us, he got raised to life for us, and now he's pleading for us. Wow, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? That's who you've got in your corner. This is who we've got. This is why he's the only source for ultimate hope. And this is why the Christian faith should only lean on, rest on, rely on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. This is what it's all about. It's just about what Jesus has done and has done for us. This is what everything relied on. This was all of the early church. Everything was built on and based on what Jesus has done. And then Paul goes to these incredible verses, which you've probably heard before, but now it begins to make more sense because he then says, who can separate us from the love of God? I mean, he's building up to this point. This is like the climax of this passage. This is the like end credits of the film, right? You know, this is the hero moment. So who can separate us from the love of God? And then he just lists a bunch of things: trouble, hardship, famine, persecution, nakedness, danger, the threat of death. You know, like he just lays it on. And I told you the gospel is honest. Okay, these are real things that people are really facing. And, you know, it's like, hey, who can separate us? And in our, you know, this is kind of old-fashioned language because I don't think any of us are running around necessarily thinking about famine. You know, these aren't really challenges that we face, right? You know, but the way we would say this is, oh, God doesn't love me anymore now because I'm facing a health crisis. God doesn't love me anymore because I'm still single and I've been desperately wanting to find somebody and I haven't for so long. You know, God doesn't love me because I'm facing challenges in my life. This is how we would sort of modernize that. And then Paul responds, you know, he asks the question, who can separate? And then he answers his own question. He says, no, nothing. Nobody can separate us. And he says, in all of these things, or despite these things, which he just listed, we are more than conquerors. We are more than conquerors. Why? But why are we conquerors? Why are we victorious? Because we're so good? Because we're so strong? Because we're so capable? Because we can speak 7 languages? Because we've got tons of money in our bank accounts? Because we've got so many followers? Why are we more than conquerors? Because we're popular, athletic, good looking? Why are we more than conquerors? The only reason that we are victorious is because of him who loved us. That's the victory. That's the reason for being victorious. You know, and Paul, you just read about Paul's life. You know, we're going really quickly here today, sorry. Paul had a rubbish, tough, hard life. He was beaten, shipwrecked. He was, you know, they left him for dead a number of times. He was thrown into prisons. He was taken out of the cities and they stoned him with stones. He was bitten by snakes. You know, he had people turn their back on him. He was isolated. He was left alone. He spent years in prison cells. You know, he's not writing from a place of saying, hey, life is so easy. You know, Paul had it incredibly tough. And he says, in all of these things, and all of the things that I've experienced, I'm more than a conqueror because of Jesus who loves me and embraced the mess, yeah? And then he says this, which is so cool. I am convinced. He said, he's been asking you questions up till now. And then he says, the language changes in the letter, and he says, I am convinced. He pins his colors to the mast, right? He says, I'm convinced that nothing, right? Nothing, yeah? Neither death or life, angels or demons, the present or the future, height or depth, anything else in, there's that word again, all creation. All creation. Nothing in all creation. Nothing in all creation. See, up till now, what we've thought of is we sometimes think of sin as a certain behavior that you do and you shouldn't do it. But it's bigger than that. The gospel narrative says sin is a poison that corrupts all of creation. Everything is dying and decaying because of the poison of sin. And it's a slave to this bondage. And then Paul links it back at the very end. He says, nothing in all creation, he uses the same phrase again, nothing in all creation will be able to separate you from what? The love of God. No matter how toxic or poisonous or corrupting and decaying stuff is, nothing can separate you from the love of God. Nothing in all of creation. You know, just fill in the blanks. You know, nothing in all of creation. I don't know what you're facing right now. Divorce, abandonment, isolation, I don't know, health crisis, financial crisis, relational crisis, I don't know. Uncertainty, there's uncertainty about your job, I don't know what you're facing. We're all facing something. It said this morning, we're all facing something. Fill in the blanks. Put your scenario in there. I'm convinced that what I'm facing right now is not going to be able to separate me from the love of Jesus. I am convinced that whatever I'm facing is not going to be able to separate me from the love of Jesus. In a moment, we're just going to close, and I'm going to change tops. And we're gonna close. We're gonna go into a worship song. And while we go into this song to wrap up, the question I want us to reflect on is, where have we placed our hope? Is it in these things? That's not an exhaustive list, of course. Is it in these things, or is it in the love of Jesus? We have an opportunity. We have a choice, a decision of where we're going to hook our hope. Because in a world that seems so hopeless, we need something to hang on to. We need something to put our hope in. I'm just going to invite the team to come on up, please.
Our source, you are our sufficiency. Lord, it's in you we have all we'll ever need. You are our peace. You are our peace, completely secure in you. Our everything, now we are alive in you. You are the wellspring of life, the fountain of hope that never runs dry. You quench the thirst deep within. You are the one we love. You are the wellspring of life, the fountain of hope that never runs dry. You quench the thirst deep within. You are the one we love. You are the wellspring of hope, the fountain of hope that never runs dry. You quench the thirst deep within. You are the one we love.
I don't know what you're facing, but you know what you're facing. And I just want to pray for you as we wrap up. I just want to pray for you. Heavenly Father, I just pray for each person who's here this morning, whether they're in the room or watching online or catching up at some other point in demand. God, I just ask that you be with them with whatever it is that they are facing right now. And we thank you that we can be honest with you, God, about life, because sometimes it's really hard. Thank you that we can say that and don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed of even trying to acknowledge that it's tough sometimes. And God, I just ask that you would strengthen each person here. God, whatever it is that they're carrying, whatever ache it is that they've got, I ask that you would be with them. God, thank you that your promise is that you will always be with us and that nothing can separate us from your love. God, I ask that you would be with each person now. Be with them, whatever they're facing, and strengthen their hearts, God, to have hope in you. And in your wonderful, precious name we pray. Amen. If anybody has any questions, you want to talk about anything, or maybe you want to find out a bit more what it means to be a follower of Jesus, if you have any questions, please come speak to me afterwards. Speak with David and Jan as well. Please, if you have any questions, come and chat to us. In a few minutes, we will be having to go collect our children and youth from across the road. So please, in a few minutes, head over there by 12 to get them. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here this morning. And we're going to start a new theme next Sunday. So cool. Thank you.